My stepfather once told me I'd never amount to anything without clinging to his family's money, so I bought out his company and fired him on my very first day as CEO. I was 16 when Rick married my mom and moved us into his waterfront mansion in San Diego. He owned Pacific Edge Development, the biggest coastal resort construction firm in Southern California. At family dinners, Rick would lean back in his Italian leather chair, swirling a glass of top-shelf bourbon, going on and on about legacy and bloodlines like he was royalty. "This company is the family's lifeblood," he'd proclaim, raising his glass toward Brad. "To real family." The message couldn't have been clearer. I wasn't real family. My biological father died when I was 8. My mom, Anne, had struggled for years to raise me until she met Rick at a grief support group. At first, he seemed like a savior, paid off her debts, moved us out of our tiny apartment and into that glamorous seaside mansion. But the honeymoon didn't last long. I graduated high school with a 4.2 GPA. Rick generously offered me a job in the warehouse, minimum wage, 4:30 a.m. shifts, hauling containers. Meanwhile, his biological son Brad barely scraped through community college and was given a glass-walled office with AC and a personal espresso machine. "You should be grateful," Rick told me when I asked about advancement. "Without this last name, you're nothing. No money, no connections, no future." "At least I'm giving you honest work," he added. Brad snorted from his swivel chair, feet on the desk, eyes glued to his game screen. That night, I made a decision that would change the rest of my life. I enlisted in the Army Corps of Engineers that Monday and spent the next 4 years learning construction the hard way. While Brad partied on Daddy's dime, I built bridges in Afghanistan, led high-pressure missions, then used the GI Bill to earn a civil engineering degree, graduating with honors while working night shifts at Coastal Corps, Rick's top competitor. Rick laughed out loud when he heard I'd earned my degree. "Playing in sand and concrete doesn't make you family, kid." By 25, I was managing multi-million-dollar projects. By 30, I was a partner, cleaning up the messes Pacific Edge left behind. Every contract I won, every deal I closed, I heard Rick's voice in my head. Last month, Rick had a massive heart attack during a board meeting. While he was in the hospital, Brad drove the company into the ground. 3 major lawsuits, 2 OSHA violations, and a sexual harassment case that made the local news. Strategic investors like Oceanfront Capital pulled out. The bank called the loans. Pacific Edge started bleeding money like a ruptured pipe. That's when I made my move. I'd spent years quietly winning over their client base, proving superior quality and reliability. I offered to buy Pacific Edge for 60 cents on the dollar, and the desperate board didn't hesitate. Yesterday, we signed the deal. Today is my first official day as CEO. At exactly 8 a.m., I walked into the main lobby, past the framed portraits on the wall. None of me, of course. Just Rick, Brad, and Rick's grandfather, the company's founder. Rick's longtime assistant, Liz, looked stunned to see me in a tailored 3-piece suit. "He's in his office," she whispered, clearly confused. "But there's no meeting scheduled this morning." "Oh, he's expecting me," I replied, adjusting my tie. "He just doesn't know it yet." I pushed open the office door without knocking. Rick sat behind the same massive oak desk where he'd once signed my minimum wage checks. He looked up, pale and still recovering. "What the hell are you doing here?" I smiled and dropped the ownership file right onto his morning coffee. "Just cleaning house." His face went through a storm of emotions as he read, shock, disbelief, then a rage so intense the veins on his neck looked like ropes. "This can't be," he muttered, flipping pages with trembling hands. "The board would never sell to a nobody like you." "The vote was unanimous," I cut in, settling calmly into the chair across from him like I belonged there. "Turns out, they weren't too thrilled about Brad's lawsuits or your safety violations nearly shutting down the La Jolla project. Funny thing, liability insurance doubles when you ignore safety protocols." Rick's face turned beet red. "You conniving little, you set this up." 16 years in the making. I nodded, legs crossed, calm as ever. "Since the day you said I'd never make it without the great Rick's help." Rick shot to his feet, his chair slamming into the glass wall behind him. "This company has been in my blood for 3 generations. My grandfather built it with his bare hands during the Great Depression." "You can't just—" "Actually, I can," I said. "I did, and now we need to discuss your severance package." The word severance hit like a slap. Rick's mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping on dry land. You're firing me?" "Effective immediately." I pulled out a manila envelope and slid it across the desk. 2 weeks severance per state law. You'll need to return your company car keys, building access badge, corporate ID, and Amex card before you leave today. For a moment, I thought he was about to have another heart attack. His left hand clutched his chest as he gasped, wheezing. 16 years, Rick rasped, gripping the desk, his voice unraveling with each breath. For 16 years I lived in that house you called a handout, ate meals you constantly reminded me were a favor, and wore clothes you said I should be grateful for, just to be told every day that I'd never be blood, never be real family, I said, keeping my voice calm and professional, that I was nothing without the Rick name, that I should be thankful for every crumb you threw my way. The office door burst open, and Brad stumbled in, looking like he'd just crawled out of a dive bar at dawn. Hair a mess, shirt wrinkled, breath reeking of booze and cheap cologne. "Dad, what's going on?" Security called and said. He stopped cold when he saw me, seated comfortably in the guest chair like I owned the place, because now I did. "What's he doing here?" Brad asked, pointing a shaky finger at me. "Explaining your severance package," I replied cheerfully, pulling out a second envelope. 2 weeks' pay, same as your father. All company property must be turned in by 5 p.m. today. Brad's bloodshot eyes bounced between me and Rick. "Severance?" he stammered. "What the hell is he talking about?" "Show him the documents," I said to Rick. Brad snatched the ownership file, lips moving as he tried to parse the legalese. I watched realization hit him like a slow-motion explosion, unavoidable and unstoppable. This can't be legal," he croaked. "You can't just steal my family's company." "I didn't steal anything," I said. "I bought it legally, after you ran it into the ground with your stellar management." "Stellar management?" Brad shrieked, voice cracking. "I've been working here for 3 years. 3 years that include 2 sexual harassment lawsuits, a $180,000 fine from OSHA, and the loss of 3 major contracts due to delays and shoddy quality," I cut in. "That's all BS," Brad roared, stepping toward me. "That secretary, she was totally asking for it. Tight skirts, always bending over in front of me." "Shut your mouth," Rick snapped, his voice like a blade. "Brad, stop talking now." But the liquor had unhinged whatever filter Brad might have had. "You think you're so smart, taking over the company, playing boss? You'll be bankrupt within a year. You're not family, you never were," he spat. "You're just some loser my dad pitied." The words hung thick in the air like cigar smoke. Even Rick flinched, shame flickering across his face. "You're right," I said, standing up, straightening my jacket. "I'm not real family. Real family is covering up each other's crimes, looking the other way when coworkers are harassed, valuing bloodlines over competence." I stepped closer to Brad, close enough to smell the stale liquor on his breath. "But I am the real threat, and I beat you a long time ago." The door swung open again, and the 2 security guards I hired that morning stepped in. Not Rick's old rent-a-cops, these were ex-military uniformed, solid as steel. "Gentlemen," I nodded, "please escort these 2 off the premises. They are no longer employees. They'll collect their personal belongings under supervision." Brad opened his mouth, but one of the guards, built like a fridge, expression unreadable, stepped forward, hands behind his back. "Sir," he said, voice calm but firm, "we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your call." Rick placed a hand on Brad's arm. "Let's go, Brad," he said quietly. "It's over." As they reached the door, Rick turned back one last time. His face looked 10 years older than it had an hour ago. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Oh, it is," I replied, settling into the chair that once was his. Now it was mine. "It ended a long time ago. You just didn't realize it." Once they were gone, I pressed the intercom. "Liz, please schedule an all-hands meeting for 10 a.m. in the main conference room. Office staff, foremen, project managers, anyone who can get off-site." She nodded sharply, her eyes lighting up like someone who hadn't felt seen in 20 years under Rick. "Should I get coffee and pastries?" she asked, still a little hesitant. "Absolutely," I smiled. "It's going to be a long meeting, and we've got a lot to talk about." By 10 a.m., the conference room was packed. Some stood along the walls, chairs long gone. Concrete-streaked foremen sat beside buttoned-up accountants. I had never seen the entire company gathered in one room before. "Some of you were here before I was even born," I began, scanning a sea of familiar and unfamiliar faces. "You're the ones who built this company, with your sweat, your skills, and your dedication. And under new leadership, that effort will finally be recognized and properly rewarded." A ripple of murmurs swept through the room. "Let's be direct," I said. "Yes, I've acquired Pacific Edge. Yes, Rick and Brad are gone. And yes, that means things are about to change." Mike Rodriguez, the crane operator Rick nearly fired for questioning safety violations, raised his hand. "What about the mess Brad left behind? La Jolla's a disaster. We're 3 weeks behind schedule, and the entire foundation needs to be redone." "I've reviewed every active project," I said, pulling up a report on the conference room's large wall display. "La Jolla will be completed the right way, even if it takes more time and costs more than originally planned." Our reputation will be built on real quality, not cheap shortcuts for short-term gain. I advanced to the next slide, detailing every active site, current status, and specific remediation plans. The San Pedro project, for example, required full environmental remediation. We're looking at about $200,000 in costs, I admitted, but that's far better than a federal investigation, which we were days away from. Tom Wilson, a senior supervisor with 15 years at the company, spoke up. What about the rest of us? Are there going to be layoffs? No one's getting cut for performance, I said. In fact, I'm introducing immediate changes that benefit everyone in this room. I flipped to the next slide. New company policies and benefits. Effective immediately. I listed them off. Profit sharing for all employees after 6 months. Safety bonuses for incident-free projects. Tuition assistance for anyone pursuing skills training. Promotion opportunities based on merit, not family ties. The room started to buzz. Eyes lit up. These were things no one had even dared dream of under Rick. In addition, I said, we're implementing a zero-tolerance policy for sexual harassment, discrimination, and workplace bullying. Every employee, especially management, will undergo professional retraining. I paused, locking eyes with a few veteran managers who had helped foster the toxic old boys club culture. We're also rolling out an anonymous reporting system for violations and internal issues. No one should fear retaliation for speaking up. Liz raised her hand. What about admin changes? HR, she asked cautiously. You're keeping your role, Liz, I smiled. In fact, you're getting a significant raise and a new title, Executive Assistant to the CEO. Your institutional knowledge and loyalty are invaluable. A visible wave of relief washed over her face. I know, I continued. Change is scary, but I've spent 12 years preparing for this moment. I've studied how great companies operate, how they respect their workers, and build lasting relationships with partners. Danny Martinez, a young worker at the end of the table, called out, "What about the harassment stuff? Are you actually going to deal with that mess?" Absolutely, I said. Anyone with a substantiated record will be required to undergo retraining. Anyone who repeats violations will be terminated. We're building an environment where everyone can work without fear or abuse. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. People asked questions about everything from PTO policies to replacing outdated equipment. For the first time in Pacific Edge's history, the staff felt heard. As the room began to clear, Mike Rodriguez came up to me. "I just want to say thank you," he said, voice low. "Rick fired me last month just for reporting unsafe scaffolding at La Jolla. 3 people could have died." "That's exactly why speaking up is essential," I replied. "Like I said, safety is non-negotiable." In the weeks that followed, word spread through the construction industry like wildfire. Pacific Edge had new leadership, new standards, and a completely different vision. 3 major clients who had walked away under Rick's leadership reached out within the first month. Ironically, Oceanfront Capital, the very firm that had pulled funding, requested a new meeting. "We've heard about the changes," their project director said. "The commitment to quality and safety. That's the kind of partner we want." The local paper ran a front-page feature. Family business reborn under new leadership. They interviewed employees who praised the positive work environment and transparent management. Liz told the reporter, "It's like I'm working for a completely different company. This time, we actually have a voice." The article ran alongside a photo of me in front of headquarters with a group of engineers and workers. Everyone was smiling, a rare sight back when Rick was in charge. But not everyone welcomed the change. Rick tried launching a rival company, Heritage Construction, branding himself as a seasoned veteran with decades of experience. But no bank would finance him. The OSHA violations, EPA investigations, and harassment lawsuits had turned him radioactive for any investor. He tried luring back former staff, promising high salaries and touting a real family atmosphere. Only 2 people followed him, both longtime friends of Brad, both previously warned for misconduct in the workplace. Brad bounced from job to job, unable to explain the glaring gap in his resume without admitting he'd been fired from the family company. Eventually, he took a junior project manager role at a small firm in Florida, someplace where no one knew his past. 3 weeks after the takeover, my mother called me. "Rick says you humiliated him in front of the entire company," she said, voice trembling. "He claims you spent years plotting your revenge." "It wasn't revenge," I replied. "I spent years planning for success. That humiliation, that was a consequence of his own actions. He's your stepfather. He raised you. He gave you opportunities. He let me live under his roof." I cut her off. "And never once let me forget I wasn't really family." There's a difference between raising someone and accepting them as your own. My mother was silent for a long time. I could hear Rick whispering something in the background. He says he'll challenge the acquisition, claims you manipulated the board and used inside information. The board made their decision based on data and liability. If he wants to go to court, that's his choice. But Rick should know, I had documented every safety violation, every harassment complaint, every corner he cut to pad his own profits. This tore our family apart, and that hurt more than I ever expected. My mom had always been the one caught in the middle trying to maintain peace between Rick and me. But no, Mom, Rick broke this family 16 years ago, when he decided I wasn't good enough to be part of it. I only just stopped pretending otherwise. 6 months into the takeover, Pacific Edge Development posted its strongest quarter in 5 years. The La Jolla project was completed ahead of schedule and came in over $50,000 under budget. 3 major contracts were secured, including a $2.3 million urban redevelopment. I hired Jessica Chen as head of HR, a seasoned expert in workplace safety and equitable environments. Harassment training became mandatory for everyone, from interns to executives. Safety violations dropped to 0. Turnover hit its lowest rate since the company's founding. The anonymous feedback system began to bear fruit, streamlining processes and even leading to the dismissal of an employee caught stealing. Morale soared so high that employees took a spontaneous vote to gift me a plaque for the boss who actually listens. It now sits on my desk where the old framed photo of Rick and Brad used to be. That turnaround caught the attention of the industry press. Construction Today ran a feature titled, "How New Leadership Revived a Failing Family Business." The article spotlighted our impressive safety metrics, high employee satisfaction, and rapid financial recovery. When asked about the transition, I answered diplomatically, change is never easy, but sometimes it's necessary for growth and progress. Rick was quoted too, but buried at the bottom of the page. Just a few lines. I built that company from scratch. Some people just don't respect tradition or family loyalty. The contrast was clear. While I spoke about the team, safety, and the future, he was still stuck in the past, bitter and clinging to a legacy that had already moved on. 1 year after the takeover, I welcomed an unexpected visitor, Maria Santos, fresh out of college with a degree in civil engineering. She sat across from me with a firm handshake and a determined gaze. I heard you judge people by their ability, not their bloodline, she said. Every company I applied to asked what my father does, or whether I plan to get married and have kids. I hired her as a project engineer. On her first day, I took her to the San Pedro site, where we were still repairing the mess Rick left behind, the right way. This is what we do here, I said as we stood in the site trailer reviewing blueprints spread across the table. We build things that last, we do it right, and we do it safely. She nodded, her hard hat gleaming under the job site lights. And Maria, I added, at this company, family is something you build, not something you're born into. Maria soon proved herself a rising star. Within 6 months, she was leading sub-projects. By the end of her first year, she was managing complex construction phases. Clients and colleagues alike were impressed by her precision and her uncompromising commitment to safety. The La Jolla project became Pacific Edge's new benchmark. When it wrapped, Architectural Digest featured it as a model of sustainable construction. Not a single reportable incident in 8 months of work. Patricia Wells, CEO of Oceanfront Capital, called to discuss a long-term partnership. We've worked with dozens of contractors over the years, she said, but your team's professionalism and attention to detail are rare. We want exclusivity for the next development phases. A $15 million contract over 3 years. But with success came new challenges. Growing the team, hiring smart, investing in equipment, without losing the values that got us here. I did something even I hadn't expected. I reached out to a few former competitors Rick had burned. Contractors who lost bids thanks to Hartwell's undercut at all costs policy. Many experienced professionals were eager to join a reputable company like Pacific Edge. James Patterson, a former project manager blacklisted by Rick for refusing to falsify a report, became our new director of quality control. I never thought I'd work for a company once tied to Hartwell, he said during his interview. But what you're building here isn't the old Hartwell anymore. Within 2 years, we grew from 85 to 150 employees. The culture held strong because we only hired people who shared our core values, not just those who could fill a slot. Employee surveys ranked us among the top construction firms in the region. Our conference room walls were lined with safety awards. Client retention hit 95%. And Rick? His final efforts grew increasingly desperate. Heritage Construction submitted bids so low they defied logic, but when projects ran over budget and fell behind schedule, clients turned to Pacific Edge to fix the mess Rick had left. Once again, I was cleaning up after him, just like back at Morrison & Associates. Then, one crisp autumn afternoon, Brad showed up. Security called me before letting him in. I saw him sitting in the lobby, hollow-eyed, tired. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes sunken, his frame thinner than I remembered. "I need a job," he said without pretense. "Jack, I know what you're thinking, but I've changed. The lawsuit in Florida, the drinking, I went to rehab. I've been clean for 4 months." I studied Brad's face, looking for traces of the arrogance and toxicity that once defined him. But there was something else now, something that looked a lot like humility, like regret. "What happened in Florida?" "The same thing that happened here. Harassment complaint, fired for a reason this time. No Rick to protect me, I had to face myself." He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo of his therapist's certificate and his AA sponsor records. "I'm not asking for special treatment. Let me start in the yard, minimum wage. I just need a chance to prove I've changed." It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. Every rational voice in my head screamed no. Brad had once been a cornerstone of the toxic culture that nearly sank Pacific Edge. But looking him in the eye, I saw something I'd never seen before. True remorse. I finally said, "You'll report directly to Maria Santos. She's running the equipment maintenance program. Any misconduct, attitude, or backsliding, and you're gone, for good." Brad nodded quickly. "I understand, thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance." "Don't thank me yet, thank me in 6 months if you're still here and doing the work." Brad's return sent ripples through the company. Some employees were wary, remembering his past behavior. I addressed it in the next all-hands meeting. "Brad is on probation. He's here to prove he's changed. If anyone witnesses inappropriate behavior, report it immediately." Zero tolerance meant zero tolerance. Brad started in the yard, maintaining trucks and heavy equipment. He arrived early, stayed late, kept his head down. Not a single incident was reported. After 3 months, Maria walked into my office. "I hate to admit it," she said, "but Brad's doing well. He's thorough, dependable, and respectful." I was genuinely surprised. I expected the shine to wear off, for him to slide back into old habits. But he didn't. He seemed truly committed. 6 months later, Brad was promoted to equipment coordinator. He attended safety meetings, offered thoughtful suggestions. The real test came at the year-end party. In the past, these parties had been chaos, booze-fueled disasters HR had to clean up. Now, we held them at professional venues, limited alcohol, invited families. Brad showed up alone, drank soda. When Maria's daughter asked about the big trucks in the yard, Brad spent 20 minutes explaining everything and let her sit in the driver's seat while Maria took photos. "Thanks for giving him the chance to be better," Maria told me afterward. 3 years after the takeover, Patricia Wells from Henderson Development called. "We'd like to discuss a serious proposal," she said. I met her at her office and was surprised to see representatives from 3 other development firms. Together, they offered a 5-year regional exclusivity contract worth $50 million. "Why us?" I asked. "Because you've proven that profit and principles don't have to be at odds," said Mr. Torres from Torres Development. I knew then I needed someone I could trust to help carry the weight. Maria was promoted to executive vice president, becoming the youngest leader in the company's history. Brad, now a dependable contributor, was the first to offer his congratulations. "She deserves it," he said. "I'm honestly proud to work with her." But rapid growth came with strain on our systems and our culture. Some new hires at satellite offices didn't fully embrace our integrity and safety-first approach. We faced our first major incident in 3 years. A worker fell from scaffolding at the Haven Bay Phase 2 site and broke his leg. An investigation revealed safety protocols hadn't been fully followed. I flew to the branch office the next day and shut down all operations until the entire team completed additional safety training. The delay cost us $75,000, but it sent a clear message. Safety is non-negotiable. "We do not trade safety for speed," I told the gathered crew. Not ever. I didn't care about deadlines or financial pressure. Everyone goes home safe. Every shift, every time. The incident also exposed weaknesses in our management structure. Our regional supervisors were capable, but they hadn't fully absorbed the company culture. So I implemented quarterly culture reviews and a mandatory leadership rotation policy. Each supervisor would spend at least 1 month a year at headquarters, working directly with our core leadership team. It was an investment, but it paid off. By year 5, all 3 offices operated with the same high standards and cohesive values. Safety incidents were virtually non-existent. Employee satisfaction remained high. But success brought an unexpected personal challenge. One evening, my mom called. Her voice trembled. "Rick's in the hospital. The doctors say it's pancreatic cancer, late stage." The news hit harder than I expected. I never wished pain on Rick. "How long?" I asked. "Maybe a few weeks, a month at most." He wants to see you." The hospital smelled like antiseptic and resignation. Rick looked frail, connected to blinking machines. The man who had once loomed over my youth was now a shell of himself. "I didn't think you'd come," he rasped. "Your mother asked me to." We sat in uneasy silence until Rick finally spoke. "I was wrong about you." "Rick, let me say it," I interrupted. "From the beginning, you were afraid I'd outshine your son. I was never your blood, and you couldn't handle that." He coughed, dry, exhausted. "I tried to hold you back. I was scared you'd be better than Brad. And you were." "Brad's doing well," I said. "He really changed. I gave him a chance, and he earned it." Rick's eyes widened. "You hired him?" "I gave him a shot to prove he'd grown, and he did. People can change if they want to. Brad worked for it. I'm not sure you ever did." Rick stared at the ceiling for a long time. "The company? It's good. Better than anything I ever built." "We've been fortunate," I said. Rick gave a tired, crooked smile. "Number you turned a company on the brink into a regional force in 5 years. That's not luck, that's talent and vision." He looked me dead in the eye. "I'm proud of what you've done. I should have said it sooner. I'm sorry for making you feel unwelcome, for saying you'd never be anything." My throat tightened. I held back tears. "I forgive you," I said, and I meant it. Rick passed away 2 weeks later. Brad flew in for the funeral. It was a small gathering, family, a few old colleagues, and a handful of former employees. I delivered the eulogy, highlighting Rick's role in founding Hartwell Construction. I left out the rocky years between us. After the service, Brad approached me. "Thanks for what you said and for the chance you gave me. I know it wasn't easy." "Everyone deserves a second chance if they're truly ready to change," I replied. "Dad was right," Brad said. "You became the man he feared you'd become, the man he wished he could have been." 6 months later, Henderson Development awarded us our biggest project yet, a $25 million downtown revitalization complex. The signing ceremony was held in the very same conference room where Rick once offered me a warehouse job at minimum wage. I stood at the head of the table, surrounded by a team that believed in me and clients who respected our work. I thought of the boy who once joined the military rather than accept being treated like nothing. That boy could never have imagined this day, leading a 300-person company, partnering with top developers, achieving a level of success that surpassed even Rick's greatest dreams. But what I'm most proud of isn't the contracts or the growth. It's the culture we built. A place where Maria rose to executive vice president on merit, where Brad could redeem himself through hard work, where safety and integrity were non-negotiable. As I signed the contract, I glanced at the spot where Rick's portrait once hung. Now, it's a photo of our staff at the most recent safety award ceremony. 150 smiling faces, the true heart of Hartwell Construction. After the clients left, I stayed in the conference room alone, gazing out at the job site where I used to load freight at dawn. Sarah knocked. "Your new business cards are here," she said, handing me a small box. I opened it. Jack Collins, CEO, Hartwell Construction, building excellence together. For the first time, my last name appeared on a Hartwell business card, not because I married into it or inherited it, but because I earned it. That evening, I called my mother. "The funeral was beautiful," she said. "Rick would have been pleased." "How are you?" "Better than I expected. The house is quiet now, but peaceful, for the first time in years." "What are you going to do next?" "Maybe travel, visit the office, see what I've built." "I'd love that." "Jack?" "Yes, Mom?" "I'm proud of you. I should have said it long ago. I'm proud of the man you've become and the company you've built." I ended the call and took one last walk through the office before heading home. The desk was tidy, the computer asleep, but evidence of success was everywhere. Project photos on the walls, safety awards in the display case, a bulletin board full of employee recognition certificates. I sat at the desk that once symbolized Rick's power. The ownership papers were now framed on the wall, a quiet reminder of the journey. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new projects, new opportunities to prove that success built on integrity and respect lasts longer than success born of fear and favoritism. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment of contentment. Rick was wrong. I didn't need his family's money to succeed. I built it all myself, and more than anything, I built a place truly worthy of being called a family.